seize the moment.
Sweet, we're live, bro. How you doing, Nani?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Good. Nani or Hernani? What do you prefer?
Hernani.
Hernani.
You got to roll it. Yeah, there you go.
Hernani. All right. So, welcome to the show. I'm really happy to have you. Super excited. I wanted you on the show even before you won your Rogue Bear Hug Challenge. We'll get to in a bit.
Yeah.
But lots of big changes. I mean, obviously COVID has changed things for all of us, but you've got some exciting things going on. So I'm excited to chat with you about that. But how you doing, man? How's training been?
Training's been good. Obviously different. It's not the same environment where you have people around you and cheering you on in the middle of a class and things like that. So it's a little more, I guess, lonely. But I have Sam too, and so like we kind of push each other inside the walls here and there. So it's besides that, I've been pretty consistent throughout the whole thing. It's kind of my anchor point from the beginning of COVID. If we're going to relate to that. To now, it's kind of what allows me to still be like super optimistic about everything, and again keeps me centered essentially. So training's been fine overall. I feel good.
That's good, man. That's good. Yeah, I found consistency is where you gotta really, because everything else is so variable, right? Like in terms of equipment, in terms of environment and all that stuff. So yeah, I think consistency is the biggest thing that I've been focusing on as well. And it's been really, I guess I can see it paying off, I guess, the consistency, right? Like just like you, my training is completely, or not completely, but it's very different than it used to be. Example, like I'm not doing a lot of weightlifting. Obviously, I don't really have the space for that. But I'm still trying to stay strong and consistency, right? So I do see myself getting strong and good at some things, but I am worried to get back to the weightlifting back in the gym. But whatever, ebbs and flows, right?
Yeah, totally. And I mentioned I was like, I feel lonely. Like it's funny because like I feel like I should mention this too. There are times where like I love to work out alone. And I had a chance to work out in a group setting for about a week because of the Barrie spot. And so like that was really cool. But yeah, I don't want to sound like lonely, like I'm super sad. Like
Yeah,
I
of
want
course,
to brush
man.
up on that.
Yeah, no worries, man. Yeah, I mean, speaking about that, I mean, I took the community for granted. I'll be honest. Like, and I've talked about this before, but I used to train alone a lot. Like before I got into CrossFit, I was doing a lot of bodybuilding. So I'd be the guy going to the good life, put my headphones on, just pump some iron, go back home, kind of thing. Maybe I'll chat with a few people here and there, but I was always just like a very individual activity. And then I discovered CrossFit, and I never used to really do cardio except for soccer, really. And CrossFit was a way for me to be like, hey, you know what? Like that person is suffering, I'm suffering, we're all suffering together, like in a good way for a good purpose, trying to be healthy or whatever. And it really inspired me. And then as soon as COVID hit, I was just like, oh, like now I got to do this alone. And it's definitely tough. Like you said, I've experienced that kind of like loneliness, I guess, at certain points, but just like you, I have Cass here, just kind of pushing me a little bit, and then grateful for the online classes that gyms have, because even that's better than doing it alone for me personally. Anyway, it's not quite the same, but still good to have the community, see familiar faces, and still push each other. I see people like even though they're muted, you see them in the back just like kind of clapping for each other and like fist bumping the screen and shit. So it's different, but I think everyone's doing what they can to try to bring the same vibe. It's really cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like, going to that point where like I used to train alone too, just being busy, right? Like I had to work out when other people weren't, especially when COVID hit. So I don't take up class spots and things like that. And it's interesting to like see like the Zoom stuff come together. Like people were bantering still. So there's that sense of community here and there. But like, even like from the first, so being in Toronto, being like that, after coming back from that first lockdown, it was like, just the level of like, you think you're happy and then you see people and then you're like, oh, I'm really happy now. And I remember like the most recent opening up in like the Muskoka area, like with Sam, and I was like driving back down to Toronto. I'm like, I'm just happy. And I'm like, and the only difference was I'm seeing more people, and it was blowing my mind. Like my workout intensity is the same. Everything feels the same for me, other than the fact that now I get to see more people and my morale is like through the roof. And it's crazy how that makes a difference. Like just being in front of a community. It's super powerful.
Yeah, we're social beings, right? I think as humans, like it's rare that you see humans just be hermits, right? And just kind of living on their own. We're very social beings rather. It reminds me of something that happened to me. I started to notice at the beginning of like COVID when everything was locked down. Cass and I'd be walking down the street and then we'd bump into somebody that we knew and we would just stand there and just talk for like what felt like forever. And then it's like you look at your watch, you're like, holy shit, it's been half an hour. I've been like chatting with this person for half an hour just about like randomness. And like you said, you're just that much happier, right? And not to say that we're not happy with like we're lonely or depressed or anything like that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's just yeah, like you said, just that happiness that comes from being social and just seeing people. It's amazing, and it's something that I have to say I took for granted, and now now like I'll never take for granted.
Oh, 100% not. Yeah. We've had the same situations, especially like during the first equipment rental. We would just sit there and stare at each other like, oh, you're here. You're
Yeah.
here. And so, yeah, no, 100%. Like I'll definitely, same boat. Like I'll never take it for granted. Like having
Mm-hmm.
like just precious time with other people. Right. So,
Yeah. So let's I mean we started talking about fitness. Let's talk a little bit about your fitness journey. Like where did it start? Like when did you remember like you started to like get into fitness or start moving or playing or whatever you want to call it?
yeah, totally. So in terms of like just moving and playing, that's probably been my whole life. Like I've always been an outdoor kid. Like I yeah, when I first moved here, so I actually moved here from Portugal when I was like 4 or 5 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm an only child, grew up an only child, and so like I spent a lot of times like being imaginative in the outside world and whatever, and so that caused me to like scale trees and climb jungle gyms and stuff like that, jungle gyms, and I kind of experienced a lot of that stuff on my own, and things kind of snowballed. I always knew I wanted to be athletic, but I never know anything. And then the 2004 World Cup, sorry, Euro Cup kind of came along,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that
How
kind of
old are you?
I was 2004. I was 11. I
Okay,
was
okay.
11. Yeah, yeah, and that's when like soccer came into my life,
Yeah.
and then that's like watching. I was a big Ronaldo fan, so watching him play was like, oh, that's really cool. You can have fun while you're playing, and I think that's where like soccer started to kick up for me a lot. And then following that, you're like, oh, how do I like become better? And then the training aspect starts to come in. But I don't think I was actually serious about lifting weights or anything until about grade 10.
Okay.
So I think you're like, what, 15, 16, grade 10?
Yeah, 15, 16, yeah.
And we had a gym teacher, and I remember him sitting on this like exercise ball, like the big balls, right? He's just sitting on this thing. And he was a new gym teacher. And I'm like, why are you sitting on that? And he was kind of explaining it like, it's better than sitting on a chair, so I can keep my core engaged throughout like whatever. And he was telling me all this stuff. So I guess he influenced me because I went and bought an exercise ball. I don't know how I afforded it, but I found a way to get it. And so
Mm-hmm.
I would sit on it while playing video games.
Mm-hmm.
And somewhere along the line, I just started to do like crunches and push-ups between games.
Mm.
And that was essentially like my first little program, was random amounts of push-ups and sit-ups.
The bro workout.
Yeah, yeah, it was great. Like like I can't just sit there. I had to do something. So I
Yeah,
guess while
yeah.
everyone's like, because I think there's like a 5 minute lag time between Halo games or whatever, I'm
Yeah.
just there like, getting a little pump on. Um, and then eventually my dad bought some equipment at home, and then I would start to like, hey, I'm a skinny kid. I was 130 pounds, like soaking wet at the time.
How tall were you?
I'm oh, in grade that I was probably like five. I'm 5'11" now, but I was probably like
Yeah.
a couple inches shorter, I'm guessing.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so pretty thin kid.
Yeah, yeah. I was fast though.
Yeah.
But I would search up on Google like how to gain 20 pounds in 2 months, and like, like the desperate Google searches.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then I would just start to like follow little programs here and there. Um, and then I think from there, like the interest took off, and I guess, I started doing a little more structured work. And then when I was 18, I found CrossFit.
Mm.
So I found it pretty young, which was pretty cool in itself because I've done intense things up to that point. Like
Mm-hmm.
I played soccer. I was on basketball team. I wrestled. I did a number of athletic sports, things that require me to be athletic. And I've done intense workouts, but when I joined the CrossFit gym, that was completely different.
How so?
it was just, it's that intensities part, right? And like
Yeah.
I joined CrossFit in the time where it was like just blowing up, like
Mm-hmm. So you're 18. What year would that have been? Like 2000, like 8, 9,
2012.
12. Okay, okay,
2012. It was early 2012.
okay.
At the time, I should say, like, the reason I found it was because I was in a fire program at the time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The long-term goal was to be a firefighter,
Mm-hmm.
but I couldn't pick up 200 pounds off the ground.
Mm.
You know, go figure. I held it for 200 pounds for a while. We'll talk about that after, but and so I'm like, okay, look, if I'm gonna save someone else's life, I need to get stronger.
Is that the requirement? 200 pounds? Like you have to drag that some like across a certain distance or something?
That's what I remember.
Yeah, yeah. There's like a certain weight that you have to like drag a certain distance. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, but that's it. I think I forgot what the weight is. I'm sure it was 200 because that number is always stuck in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started like Googling like firefighter training and whatnot. And so Auxillary CrossFit at the time just did a firefighter competition.
Mm.
And so I'm like, oh, they train
Interesting.
firefighters. Sweet. Like, let's go. And then I ended up joining and like, but I did so much research beforehand. Like I was sold on the program before I walked in the gym.
Mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm.
just wanted a place to train. So like, as soon as I showed up, Justin Taylor, who is the owner and head coach at the time, I was like, hey man, I'm here. Like, I'm ready to play. He ran me through some workouts and I was like, whoa, this thing's crazy. And it kind of felt like my little secret training program.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say the rest is history. Like that's how I got into CrossFit. Now I'm all in, really.
Nice, nice. So like right now, CrossFit's still like your main style of training, is what you're saying.
Oh yeah, it's definitely the meat and potatoes. Like I'll bias things.
Mm-hmm.
If I decide to sign up for say a strongman competition, or if I plan on doing like a Spartan in the future, so maybe I'll bias a little more running and obstacle courses. And
Mm-hmm.
but the main concept of CrossFit has always been to like make people better at sport.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It just so happens to be that CrossFit's also a sport,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And so, because it's a GPP program, right? The General Physical Preparedness Program. And so, like, it should technically act as like a training method that can assist you and fill your weaknesses for what you're trying to get better at.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, growing up playing soccer, like, CrossFit would have filled any weightlifting or strength voids that I was missing, because in soccer we did a bunch of agility drills and sprinting and endurance work, but I never actually like did power cleans or squats before that. And I'm like curious, I'm always curious to know like what would my game have been like if I started to do that, because I always got pushed around because I was a smaller
Yeah,
kid.
yeah.
And now playing like men's league for fun, like I'm the one pushing people around and I'm like, oh man, like if I was 14, 15 pushing people around and like having the skills that we had, like I could have been maybe even better, who knows, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's crazy. It's funny. I think we've talked about this before, how like, we had a similar experience with soccer, right? Like I was the same thing. Obviously, I'm a lot shorter, but I was also very thin. I was like 120 or 125 when I was younger, and same thing playing soccer. I remember just being pushed around, and then I started to do CrossFit, and I started weightlifting, started getting bigger legs, stronger legs, and then just like you, I mean, I'm still not pushing people around, but I'm not being pushed around as easily. I find so it's funny because I don't know. I guess I never put two and two together. Like I experienced it and I acknowledged it, but I never looked at CrossFit as being that thing for other sports, right? But seems, yeah, yeah, because you're right. It's tricky because it's a sport on its own, right? But yeah, similar to you, I'm kind of using it as like the base for other things, and I'll bias other things. I'll be like, I don't know, I want to run a race or something. I'll do more running. I got myself a rower. Maybe I'll do a couple of like rowing workouts or whatever. So yeah, same here, man. CrossFit's just been a really good thing to have as a foundation for whatever it is I want to do.
Yeah, totally. And like I find like with CrossFit too, like I'm always entertained in my training
Mm-hmm.
because like the end goals are so distant, if that makes sense. Like, unless you have an immediate goal to squat 500 pounds in 2 months, the purpose of the program is not actually for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's to like just keep you moving for a long time so that you can, stem off the nursing home kind of deal. So,
Yeah,
and like
exactly.
when you kind of train with that like mentality, like, and fall back on that, it's fun because you don't feel like you have to do a particular thing. You're like, I can mix and match my program a little bit. I can have fun with today. I want to row and do sandbag cleans,
Yeah.
and it's fun, So,
Yeah, that's one of the things I found too is the variability with it is something that really appealed to me. I started to lose motivation. I was doing like bodybuilding for like 10 years. I wasn't competing or anything, but I was just, typical guy, go to the gym. I want bigger triceps. Let me do a tricep workout. I want bigger like this. Let me do this workout. But then I started to lose motivation. I'd get up and I'd be like, all right, man, fuck, do I have to go to the gym? Yeah, I want big lats. Okay, let's go to the gym, But then with CrossFit, it was just like, a random workout. I had no idea how well it was gonna go. Like, oh, I think I'm good at pull-ups, but it's pull-ups with cleans. Am I, how is that gonna affect my pull-ups kind of thing? So it was always like a surprise as to how this workout would hit you, right? Um, so yeah, it always keeps it interesting. That's one of the things that I really like, and the whole ideology of like, what is it that they say functioning, multi-variable. What was that whole saying that they have? The little pyramid they have.
oh, so they have the pyramid. So that's a hierarchy of athletic needs. So it goes
Yeah.
nutrition at the bottom, metabolic conditioning, gymnastics, weightlifting and throwing, and at the top it's sport.
That's it.
Yeah. I've
But
done a
the
few
definition.
seminars.
Yeah. But I think the definition of CrossFit was what is it again? Like the high functioning.
Yeah. Definition of CrossFit is constantly varied functional movements
That's
executed
it.
at relatively high intensity.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, I mixed the two up. My bad. My bad. But yeah, it totally makes sense in terms of the variability is where I really love it. Like it's just constantly different. Like I'm always surprised, and there's obviously those classic workouts, which are good, I think, to sort of track your progress over time. Like I remember I used to love Grace. Like I used to do Grace. It was one of the first workouts I did. I remember I went to Chicago, and I was such a CrossFit newbie. They're like, oh, we can do this workout, Grace, and I learned at that time. I think I had been doing CrossFit for maybe a month or two. I had learned I need to be humble, right? So the RX is 135, right? So I looked at 135. I was like, I've never cleaned 135, so I'm gonna do it a lot later. So I think I did it. I don't remember. I feel like I did it at 95 or something. It still kicked my ass, obviously, and that was my first go at it. And then I remember going to the gym and someone actually did Grace and it did it like in like 2 or 3 minutes, and I was like, what the like how like that blew my mind. And then I started to work up to it and I started to see the change. I remember on Wodify, that app, you can like put in the workout, put in your score, and then track your score over time. And it was one of those things that you were talking about, goals and sort of those distant goals that you have in the future. It's like, every once in a while, every couple of months, I'm like, all right, let me do Grace. Let me see how much better I've gotten with my weightlifting and my conditioning, all this stuff. And it's a really neat sport, and I wanted to talk about something that kind of affected me and broke my heart and made me question whether or not I do the Open this year. And that was what happened earlier in the year with the ex CEO saying all these like nasty things. And it was really shocking. And I was almost kind of like, oh, like almost like embarrassed to be doing CrossFit. And what was neat about it was how the community kind of came together and everyone said, you know what, unacceptable, like that won't be tolerated. A bunch of gyms de-affiliated, and that was nice to see. And but I was also worried at the time in terms of like, where is the sport going to go? The sport that's changed my life. It's changed my mindset. It's changed my fitness. It changed my outlook on what fitness is and life in general. So like, yeah, how did you feel when all that stuff sort of went down?
Yeah, totally. I think the best way to approach is like I'll kind of just say it in the order that the news came to me to like where I ended up. So I was actually there was a few weeks there where things were starting to get leaked because we're like part of a coaches group or a affiliate owners group, and you saw some emails to one of the members there from Greg at the time, and we're like, oh, that's not professional. And so that started to raise some red flags, and we're like, that's not cool. But then at the time, I think when you tolerate someone because this is not the first time he's like said some really crazy things. And I think it was like at the time where we just loved CrossFit and what it does so much that we were allowing certain things to slide.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember opening up my phone. I was with Sam and we were like just making barbecue and stuff or just finished. And I see the tweet. Like I opened it up and I saw the tweet and it said,
Oh wow.
Floyd 19, and like from the CEO, and I'm like there, and I remember looking at it like, oh man, this is not good. And like immediately I texted my partners and I was like, hey, like I didn't even know other affiliates were saying things, to be honest, at this point. Like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize affiliates were saying we do not stand for whatever, blah, blah, blah. I was just like, hey guys, like Greg said this. I feel like this is gonna blow up. I'm like, we should probably like keep an eye on it and maybe
Mm-hmm.
say, like, maybe just make a statement saying like we're inclusive, we're this, we're that. Like, because we are, and we like
Mm-hmm.
to our core, like you've been to our place, like, you know, our
Yeah.
community. And I wanted to make sure that our members know that we're not going to stand for that. And then within about an hour, I just remember watching Instagram blow up,
Yeah.
affiliate after affiliate. And I was just like, and I think all of that, like I was so focused at the time at like dealing with what was going on. And it wasn't until like a couple hours later that I was like, I almost felt like it was a bad breakup.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, like you betrayed me. Like
Mm-hmm.
I felt betrayed in a sense, or it was kind of a weird feeling. But you're hurt because the name CrossFit got tied into one person's words.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there's a quick realization that like we can't let one person's word define a whole entire community. Like at the time there's 10,000 affiliates. Like that's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people that are being represented by one person.
Yeah.
And so after that, I was just kind of bummed, um, because I flew that flag really high. Like we do CrossFit, CrossFit safe, CrossFit's this, CrossFit's that, blah, blah, blah. And then there's a period where I'm like, I don't even want to wear a shirt that says CrossFit anymore
Yeah.
because of
Yeah.
what happened. It's like it got tainted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, that took a little bit of time, and you could tell the community was kind of like, even like the inner communities, like, oh, are we not going to do Murph anymore? Or like, like, are we still doing CrossFit workouts? But is it fair to do CrossFit workouts if we're not titled CrossFit? And I'm like, guys, thrusters are thrusters and pull-ups are pull-ups.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like that was a whole interesting thing in itself. And on top of it, all while we're shut down.
Yeah.
Right. So like I know for our gym, we held a massive town hall. And that's when I realized how important this whole gym was.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like we had, I'd say 80% of our members on there. And it's tough to like talk about these things
Yeah.
in front of
100%.
people. And so like, you know, that was a learning curve in itself. Um, and then, you know, it's like, it's not like my training changed. I'm like, this is how I know how to train. And like, I know it works. I
Mm-hmm.
know it's effective. Um, but then you kind of like take it off, you say what you need to say. And at the end of the day, like we had to do that because we had to take a stand, because there's like, we need change.
Exactly.
And ultimately, no matter what side of the spectrum you were on, because there was a lot of people who didn't believe in some of the approaches, and that's fine. But like at the end of the day, there was change. And I think like that change now, if you look back, even like anyone who said it wasn't the right way to do it, I think those people would say that they're much more pleased with how affiliates are being run now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just due to the new ownership. Because like
Yeah.
Eric is like an animal. Like that guy's a beast. Like he's like he's made a complete 180
Mm-hmm.
with CrossFit, to the point where it's like I'm getting back to like, you know, it took a while for me to even say it on my social media, like to repost a CrossFit thing. I think 2 days ago was the first time I did it,
Yeah. Yeah.
because like, you know, and I'm like, okay, no, like I'm fine to like go back and be like, hey, look, I do love CrossFit. I love what it does and what it brings. I just, there's a really dark time for it, you know?
Yeah, I think you put it really well when you said that, like tying what one person says to like an entire community, right? Because I mean, I've never felt anything but love going to all the CrossFit gyms I've ever been to. You know, your place included, obviously Academy Alliance, places in Toronto, but I mean, going to Portugal, for example, people are just so loving. You know, going to different places in Europe and France, like everyone was just like, oh, like you're from Canada, cool, like, you know, come join, like, you know, this is how we can help you, kind of thing. Like it was always such a welcoming experience no matter where I went in the world, and it was always kind of comforting to know what to expect. Like we talked about it being variable, but it's like, okay, I know that we're going to do a nice warm up, I know that we're going to do a little strengthening piece, we're going to do this conditioning piece. Like it was just nice to know what to expect, and it was nice to be welcomed, you know. And you know, obviously, like we said, we had to take a stance, and I feel like a lot of people did. And things changed. And I'll be honest, I haven't really looked too deep into, like, I'll be honest, I don't even know who Eric is. I'm assuming he's the new CEO. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Cool. So, yeah, like I expected some changes, and I'll have to look into it. But like the community for me is bigger than just one person, right? And I think that it's one of the reasons why I've been considering like doing the open, because I was so like on the fence. I'm like, man, should I do the open? Should I not do the open? I ended up doing this Toronto throwdown competition that's local, which was fun, but I don't know, it felt good. But I almost want to be like, what was neat about the open for me was to look at myself in the grand scale, be like, all right, where do I stand like in my age group, in the people who like are in my career kind of thing. It was always neat to kind of see all that stuff. And I liked the programming. It was always tough. It was always hard, and how everyone just kind of came together, and the whole CrossFit world was just kind of, again, like suffering together kind of thing, right? It was neat to see. So yeah, cool. Thanks for sharing that, man. I really appreciate that. I always like to know people's thoughts. So you've talked a little bit about Auxillary. You and Sam opened up or bought a new place, right? A new gym, and that's over in Barrie, right?
Yeah.
CrossFit Barrie.
Yeah.
Nice. Tell me about that experience. Like what inspired you guys to do it, or how did this opportunity come to be, and where do you guys hope to go?
Totally. So, it came at us pretty quick actually. But I guess before that, like me and Sam have always wanted to move up a little bit more north. Um, just nature, a little more space. I love Toronto to death. Like I'm very much a Toronto boy. Sam's originally from Barrie, actually a little place called Midhurst, which is like just north of Barrie.
Yeah, yeah. I see it on the highway.
Yeah, yeah. You just drive right by it, right? And so, um, I remember I was there in the summertime, and and it was just us, and I was on the water, like on a little floaty, like on a little floaty too, like just
Yeah,
enjoying
yeah, yeah.
myself. And I was like, it was like a 10-minute drive from her dad's, and I was like, man, like I really love this, like just like having that right there.
Yeah, there's just something about nature, right? Like the way just being in nature, you're just like so calm, relaxed, chill, like everything kind of melts away.
Yeah, and so I'm like, and that kind of like really finalized it because me and Sam have always talked about moving up north. And
Hmm.
I'm like, no, you know what? Like, I gotta do it. Like now, like when this opportunity came, like let's just do it. And so that moment was like, what am I doing? Like, let's get out of here. Anyways, and then so so Sam has a friend who essentially, he likes to call her if like opportunities come up. And so this opportunity came up, and he was literally like, hey, look, there's this gym, it's for sale. Um, Here's the details. And Sam was like, hey, like I need to think about it. It's a really good deal. It's like this sounds like a really good opportunity. She came to me and she's like, I want you to be part of this too. And then for me, it's like, okay, I have Ox. So like that was the whole decision processing part on
Hmm.
my end as well.
Hmm.
But then it was just like, you know what? We've always wanted to own a gym together, me and Sam, and run it. We also have partners in that. Excuse me. I'm like, we've always wanted to move up north and like cultivate like our own life and start to develop a life for ourselves up there. We love CrossFit, we love fitness and the business of fitness. And so it's like it all kind of like all the stars kind of aligned.
Hmm.
So all these layers all these like this check. Like we're just, off a little laundry list. We're like, this makes sense. Like, let's just go and let's just do it.
Hmm.
I think we had like 8 days or something, 8 to 10 days to make this decision.
Wow, wow. It's not a lot of time.
Oh, it's not a lot of time at all because we have to move now, right? So I'm in the middle of moving,
Hmm.
while managing, the gyms under lockdown and
Oh
all
God.
this and that. And so it's an
Yeah.
interesting time. But Sam said it right. Like when me and Sam were talking, it's like we don't want to be 60, 70, look back and regret not doing it.
Yeah, of course.
We want to be like, you know what, like we can do this, like we're young, we have energy, like let's do this thing and let's see what happens. Like, and that's
Hmm.
literally it. Like, let's see what happens. Like if
Yeah,
the worst thing that happens is we learn something.
exactly.
And so like I think like just having that mindset like helped make the decision made the decision a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Now it's like it's just exciting because it's like, okay, like Sam's been part of so many gyms. I've been like part of Aux since the beginning, and I've been around. And so it's like really cool to like start to apply all the things that we've learned and
Mm-hmm.
just bring our best. You know what I mean? And so like I'm really excited for that.
That's awesome, man. It's funny just hearing you talk about it. It kind of makes me think about chess. Obviously, with that Netflix show Queen's Gambit, like it kind of got me into chess a little bit. And then I was playing with one of my friends recently, and I never used to do this. I used to play speed chess. I thought that's the only way to play. My dad used to play speed chess with me when I was a kid, and I was like, man, it's fucking hard. He always kicked my ass. And then I realized, like, when I got older, I was like, oh, you can actually take your time and play chess. Do you play chess at all?
No, no, I played like a tad and like a long time ago, but I
Yeah.
know the game. I know how it's played.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hadn't played in 8 years, and I started playing recently with a friend of mine. And there's like an app on your phone. It's kind of neat because like you have 24 hours to do a move, right? So he moves, I can look at the phone, work or work out or whatever, and do my move whenever I feel ready. And I made a couple of mistakes within the first like 5 moves, and I was like, oh man, like I lost my knight, and I think I lost my bishop, and I was like, okay, dude, like you gotta stop playing speed chess. You gotta like slow it down and start to figure things out. And what I realized was it caused me so much stress going through
Yeah.
all the possible outcomes. Right? I'd be like, all right, if I move this guy here, then if he moves here, then all these possibilities are gonna happen. And if I move here, and like, so it was just like such a waste of time. So it was almost like kind of like what you said. It was like, okay, I should just do this thing. It looks like a good move. Like he's not gonna get me in like 3 moves, so it looks like a good opportunity, and let's just see what happens, you know. And then he moved, and then I moved, and everything. That's sort of the way that I started to approach it. I'm like, okay, I can't stop. I can't keep looking down 20 moves ahead. Like it's good to see, but I feel like you can kind of get lost and kind of forget where you're headed. So it's funny. It just made me think about what you were saying in terms of just like, hey, let's see what happens. Like let's take the opportunity, and go with the flow kind of thing, right? Just like the shirt says, flow, right?
Yeah, my shirt says flow. Yeah, yeah.
That's cool, man. I'm excited for you guys.
Yeah, same.
You guys have a really good place. Yeah, you guys have a really good place at Auxillary, and it's gonna be neat to see you guys grow something up in Barrie, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just like I'm very, I'll be honest, like I'm very, very, very proud of Auxillary.
Yeah,
And that came from just like having an awesome team. Like my partners are amazing, like the staff are like the coaches there are amazing. And then like that just brings on amazing people. And like it's you can truly cultivate any community you want. And it's crazy because like if you have like it's that whole like you are the people like the 5 people around you or like oh my god
yeah, yeah,
you're
yeah.
like the 5 closest people around you and it's cool because like at Ox like I find like if let's just use the coaches example if you like have everyone that's hardworking they smile they do this it's like that attracts more members like that too
Mm-hmm,
and you
mm-hmm.
just have this like really cool environment and so like I'm really excited to try to replicate that to a degree but like in its own sense I don't want it to be a copycat.
Exactly. Yeah.
I want to bring the best out of what we can in the other gyms. Like I'm really excited to see like how that changes from like city to city or like gym to gym. Because it's interesting to like have like I don't know, it's just interesting. I'm excited to try it, like see what happens.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Is the gym more? I haven't Googled it yet, and I haven't been there. But is it more like in the like downtown area of Barrie, or like kind of the like what part of Barrie is it at?
It's in the south part.
South part.
So if you were like driving up the 400,
Yeah.
it's like it's Mapleview, which is the most southern street there. And then I
Okay.
think I'm still learning about Barrie. I think downtown is like Essa.
I have no idea. I have no idea. I just thought I'd ask.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, you were talking about nature earlier. And yeah, it's funny because the older I get, the more I appreciate it. Like Cass and I went to Muskoka in the fall, and just her and I, we spent like a week there and just hiked, went by the water. It was a little bit chilly when we went, but still, just to be surrounded by trees and leaves is just so nice. And like you said, I love Toronto. I grew up here. I was just like you. I'm an immigrant. I came when I was 6 years old. My family came when I was 6 years old, and I grew up in the city and I love it. But I just feel like I don't know. I want to explore something different. Go out in nature at some point in my life. But we'll see. We'll see where life takes me. Um, you were talking about mindset. Uh, like, where do you? Like, where do you get that from? Like your mindset? Are you reading books? Or are you looking at documentaries? Like, what are some of your like sources for the mindset that you have?
Um, I think first and foremost, my parents. I think that's one. And then I think two, I'm like addicted to self growth. Like I love like reading and watching things and like doing as much perspective building as possible. I'm very aware that like my perspective isn't the only one.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to do I try to work really hard to get outside my own comfort zone and see things from a different light. And I find that helps my mindset. But like going back to my parents, like I think first and foremost, like I watched my parents struggle growing up, and like so seeing kind of the stuff they went through, like simply just trying to put food on the table at times and things like that, you kind of like there's nothing you can do as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
even though you want to try, but like that kind of creates this mindset where it's like, okay, like I saw what it can look like. Let me do everything to not have that happen so I can cultivate like a strong life for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of where it started from, was just like I'm in control. I can control the things I can control, and I can't control the things I can't control. And I think I learned that at a very young age.
It's good, man.
And so what I could control, I did. Like I can work hard, I can study, I can train hard, I can smile and say hi to people and just be kind because it's free, and like all these little things, but like these things stacked on top of each other has put me in a position in life where like I'm truly happy.
It's good, man. I'm happy to hear that.
So that's where like a lot of the mindset stuff comes. It's just like watching my parents turn around themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was really cool this last. It's gonna sound weird. I'm gonna say it. I don't care. But like it was cool this year. I won't mention the cars, but like my parents in the last year bought like two cars that were like they're fancy cars,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And like the funny thing is like I'm the least materialistic person you'll ever meet. Like I get ripped
Mm-hmm.
on because I'll wear a pair of pants for 5 years. I'm not kidding. I wash them. Like don't get me wrong. Like they're clean, right? But I'm like
Yeah.
the least materialistic person. But like there was something like really, I was really happy watching them like make these purchases for some reason, even though I don't care about material items, because I know what they didn't have,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And like they're persistent and they like made so much sacrifice to get exactly what they want. And like they had their backs up against the wall at one point. And I've watched them like come from home. Like my dad like would he broke his back essentially, so then he had to like go back to school, and then he would like work till like 1-2 a.m., wake up at super early and do it all again just to get back out of like whatever he was in.
Mm-hmm.
And then same with my mom and stuff. And so like that can like again you see that kind of stuff, and it shifts your mindset a bit, because you respect hard work and like what's in front of you way more. And so like when I saw them do that, I was like, okay, like they're good. Like
Yeah, it's really neat to see that. I know from the other side. It's funny. I have a very similar experience recently. Just seeing my mom like do some big things, and like you said, man, just watching them go through like the struggle and kind of figuring things out, and getting themselves a little gift, let's say, or splurging a little bit. It's really really nice to see. You know what I mean?
yeah, totally. My
Awesome,
mom,
man.
if I know she's gonna listen to this and she's gonna be like, wow, you told that. Oh yeah, you're fine. You're good. Don't worry.
Yeah. No one watches this anyway, right? So
Exactly.
be like, Caesar's got one viewer, maybe two viewers, so it's not a big deal. That's funny, man. It's good. You mentioned so your parents' big influences, obviously. Any books recently that you've been reading, or any books you'd recommend to people, like for having that kind of mindset? Because it's funny, like I like that you learned it at a young age. For me, it kind of the reason why CrossFit has such an impact on me is because it was kind of CrossFit that really made me realize it. Like I always worked hard. I always put a lot of time and effort and energy into things, but mostly because I was kind of told to. I was like, look, man, if you don't put time and energy into school, you're probably gonna have a hard time. For example, and I was like, you know what? Okay, cool. I trust you. And it just so happened that like school actually came easy to me, and then I just got so lucky finding the right career. To be honest, like I just kind of stumbled upon it. And then it was really around the same time as CrossFit where I was like, oh shit, like I can see where like the hard work, like challenging yourself actually really pays off, right? Like learning how to do my first muscle up, learning how to walk on my hands, like learning how to do snatches and working on my mobility and things like this that again I kind of knew in hindsight, but I was never really like shown. I never really fully learned that lesson, you know. So but it's neat to see that you learned it real young, man. I'm happy for you, dude. But yeah, like what are some of your other influences? Like any good books that you read lately?
Um, well, I read a lot of Coach Dan John, but that's usually like around fitness and longevity and stuff. I'd say a lot of my mindset stuff, um, other than like, I guess, even when you read like some of those Coach Dan John books, like he's got like 40 years with the whistle and stuff, he also throws in like philosophy in there and
Mm-hmm,
things like
mm-hmm,
that. So he's like someone that's been in the game for 40 plus years. And that's very rare to find in the fitness industry.
mm-hmm.
So there's that. I also just do like a lot of like, I follow people purposely, like say Instagram, because like Instagram is
Yeah.
like, I don't try to fight it anymore. I just kind of accept it. There's so much time where I'm like, I don't want to be on this thing, but it actually helps me too a lot. So like I just make sure like who I follow can like motivate me. So like I am personally like a fan of like Gary V.
Mm-hmm,
Like
mm-hmm.
I find
Yeah.
he has some insightful things, and like just like there's like certain like stoic stuff and things like that. So I'll look
Yeah.
at that. I'm a big fan of quotes
Mm-hmm,
uh
mm-hmm.
and things. And a lot of times also it's just like I just sit down and reflect on my day. And like I think
Do you meditate?
no, no, no,
No.
I don't meditate. I tried, but I didn't last long.
Well, I guess reflecting is, I guess, like a type of like meditation, I think.
Yeah, I would say that too. I say like working out is my meditation because like I'm
Yeah.
literally only focusing on not dying and catching my
Yeah.
breath. So like I'm only breathing, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Like I meditate three hours a day then, you know?
yeah, exactly. But like, yeah, even if I didn't read a book, like I'll watch like a TED talk on like extreme ownership. So like I know that's a
Oh.
book, I just haven't read it yet. But like I practice the concepts very well. Like even yesterday, I had an incident where like I conflicted my schedule between both locations, and I felt terrible. And but it was just like, I called my partner. I was like, hey, like I messed up. Like this is on me. I'm sorry. Like
Mm-hmm,
let's just take this as a learning process and this and that. And like it makes you feel better when you know it's just on you.
mm-hmm.
Where like I find a lot of people deflect a lot and they try not to put it on them. But there's something freeing about like, hey, no, this was on me.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna work on this. I'm sorry. And like you kind of move on.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where people just wanna like you've been told that you have to be perfect. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that I was kind of told as a kid. It's like you have to work hard, you have to look good, you have to do this and do that, look a certain way, just so that people will accept you, kind of thing. And then I started to learn. I was like, you know what? Like even if you are perfect, let's say, like hypothetically, because no one who truly is, right? So I'll say hypothetically, somebody was perfect, like they're still gonna get ripped on, they're still gonna get shit on, they're still gonna be judged for being quote unquote perfect, right? So yeah, I think at
oh
the end of the
yeah.
day, it's just about yeah, it's about accepting the fact that hey, you know what? I'm an imperfect human being. I'm gonna make mistakes, but I'm gonna work really hard to be a certain type of person, and hopefully, I mean, for me, I'm assuming it's the same for you. You want to be a hardworking person, you want to be a loving person, you want to be a caring person, you want to build community, you want to do all these great things, and sometimes we make mistakes, right? And I think just being accountable and saying, hey, you know what? I messed up. Um, and I'm willing to learn from it, kind of thing, I think is really important for individuals. And it's good to see that you're doing that. I think that's one of the reasons why you're successful as an athlete, but also as a business owner and as a coach, because of that accountability that you take.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I take that like far all the time. Like I'm like, okay, like is this my fault for real? Like let's like, and I'm like, let's do this thing. Because it's I don't want to, you know, some people don't like him, but like Jordan Peterson has like something that I really like that he says. It's like don't compare to where someone else is today compared to where you were yesterday, or something along the lines of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that's what he said. he's got a book called 12 Rules for Life, which is too many, but that's one of the rules. And so, and I think it was really interesting because it's like, yeah, no, like I truly like trying to outdo myself on a regular basis. And I think that needs to have ownership, because if you
Hmm.
don't and you think you're just fine, then you're not going to go anywhere.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's one of the things that CrossFit taught me too. It's like, you know what, just try to be better than you were yesterday. Try to push it a little bit harder, try to lift it a little bit harder, whatever it is than yesterday.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's neat. Yeah, Jordan Peterson's an interesting one. Yeah, he's got some interesting things to say, and then he's got some questionable things he says. But yeah, I think overall, like I said, I think as a human being, he's probably just trying to do the best that he can. Trying to help people. So, Nani, you competed in this competition by Rogue, the bear hug challenge, right?
Yeah.
So I looked at it and I was just like, I thought about it, but then I'm like, man, my arms are too small. I probably wouldn't be able to. I don't have a good bear hug.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, yeah, so I didn't do it. But then I saw that you were gonna do it, and I was like, man, I think Nanny's gonna do well. He's a big guy, strong guy. He does CrossFit. He's got the conditioning. He's got the that grit. That grit that's like, okay, this sucks, but man, I'm not gonna die from it, kind of thing, right? This is gonna hurt, but I'll be okay afterwards. And then I remember seeing a post that you were unofficially the first place person, and I was like, oh shit. I'm like, I don't think that's unofficial. I think he won this thing, right? Unless his clock was broken or something. But tell me about like why did you compete, and like how did you prep for this thing?
Totally. So I didn't even know there was a challenge. Sam brought it up to my attention. I think I want to say like 5 days before the competition started. Sam's like, hey, look, I guess she had Rogue on her email, like the challenge. And then she's like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
look, I think you'd be really good at this. And then I looked at it, and I was like, I think I'm really good at this. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go for it, and like I'm gonna send it. I'm gonna hang on for as long as possible. And so I just did regular training though. Like at this point I haven't touched a sandbag in about a year.
Wow.
So, and like right before we locked down, I was actually prepping for a under 90 kilo strongman comp. And so the only thing I was doing like sandbag runs, but then it all closed down. It got canceled. So I just didn't touch a sandbag. So I had that little bit of doubt, like, man, like I haven't touched a sandbag in forever. Like maybe I'll do like a couple touches. So I went to the gym because I haven't really been working out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to the gym and I picked up the sandbag, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to do Tabata holds off the box. So I did 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off without picking the bag up for 8 rounds. And I was like, that feels really good.
Like what do you mean? Like so you did what do you mean off the box? Like you put the bag on the box and you
Yeah,
like
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I was just trying to avoid picking it up off the ground, just to save
Mm-hmm.
my back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because at this point, this is 4 days before I did my attempt, because I
Yeah,
only
yeah,
did the attempt once.
yeah.
And then the next day, I went in and I was like, okay, I'm going to do 3 sets, 40 seconds hold, 20 seconds rest. So I did that, and I was like, this is really easy. Like, I know, like, I don't want to sound like a prick
No, man,
about it, but
just
like,
yeah,
it
just
felt easy. I was like, you know what? I'm like, let
yeah.
me actually just take 2 days off of training, because there's money on the line. I'm not gonna
Mm-hmm.
lie. Like there's a little bit of financial motivation there. Like I'm moving. I could use the rent money. Like I could use
Yeah,
the
yeah,
rent,
yeah.
and then I was watching scores come in, and I was leaderboarding the same way you would the open. And I'm like, I see 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes. And like little bits of doubt came, because I'm watching these videos, and these are like 250-pound dudes, like
Oh my
holding the
God.
bag and failing at like 530. And I'm like, I'm 185 pounds, like at 5'11. Like,
Wow.
I consider myself like well built, but I'm not like these guys.
That's crazy. I don't know if I could have done that, man. After watching that shit, I probably would have been like, I'm not doing this anymore. That's crazy, dude. Holy shit.
All I thought to myself was this. I was like, look, I'm crazier than them. And like, this sounds crazy, but like, it's what I had to say to myself.
Yeah.
Right. I'm like, I'm crazier than them. I have better conditioning, because I don't think this is a max strength test. I think this is a very much an endurance test.
Oh yeah.
Because if it was a strength test, it would have been a 1 rep max sandbag clean over the shoulder or something. And I know how to use my body very well. I'm very like hyper aware of it. And so, and CrossFit helps because we do hard things all the time. And so I go ahead. So I finally go ahead and I come to the day and I'm like, you know what? I don't care about these guys' times. I'm like, I'm just going to go in there and I'm just going to hold on until I pass out. Like, this was my actual thought. I'm like, I'm going to hold on until I see stars. Like, that's just is what it is.
Yeah.
And I queued 3 songs. And my goal was, okay, let's just get to the 3rd song. If I get there, I'm happy, because I kind of knew how long each one was. And I picked up the sandbag.
What were the songs?
Oh, Devil's Eyes by Hippie Sabotage, Guns Blazing by Eminem, and Zeus by Eminem.
Okay, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I'm a big Eminem fan. So I picked up the sandbag and my quads, like 30 seconds in, I start feeling them. And I was like, God, this is going to be a long hold. This is going to be long. And then I got into this rhythm where I just started to like sing in my head and focus on my breath. And I knew how to keep my belly tight. So like my back was fine. And it wasn't until I got through all 3 songs that I realized I was at like around 9 minutes. And I was holding the bag. I think it was like 10 minutes. And so at 10 minutes is when it actually started to hurt for me. I mean, it hurt before, but like not the same way the 10-minute mark did.
The quads, you're saying?
Yeah. And like I start to feel my whole body at this time. So it wasn't just legs. I start to feel like my forearms, like my abs had to stay extra tight. And I looked at Sam like, I looked at Sam like, this is a winning time. And in Sam's exact words, she's like, some fucker's going to hold it for 2 more minutes. And so like immediately in my brain, I'm like, well, I have to be that prick that holds it for 2 more minutes. Like I have to be that guy. Yeah. And that's when like it really started to like settle in. And then, I held it till I literally couldn't. Like my body was like, I just started to shut down a little bit. And then if you watch the full video, I'm kind of just napping on the bag for like a minute right after, because like your whole nervous system gets shot.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. Holy smokes. And I would love to put this like on an official cast. My back was perfectly fine. Like everyone's like, how's your back? How's your back? And I was like, my back was perfectly fine. And that just comes down. I give credit to the fact that like I've learned from others, like strongman athletes, but like one, it's like being a coach, you know how to keep your midline engaged and how to use your hips and quads appropriately. So my back didn't flare up at all, just from like properly engaging. And like, so yeah, my back is perfectly fine.
Nice.
Because I saw so many, and like this is a cool opportunity too, because I'm like, you know what, like I'm in somewhat of a spotlight. I want to know how I react as a person to comments.
Yeah.
And I was so happy to know that they don't bother me.
Nice. That's good, man, because comments are deadly, man. That's what I hear anyway.
Yeah.
That's really cool, man. So like, how did you feel afterwards? Like, were your quads sore? Were your forearms sore like the day after? Or did you feel like how did you feel?
Yeah. So immediately after, I couldn't get up. I actually struggled to stand. So I just stayed down for a bit.
Yeah.
For the first couple hours after, my legs were pretty much useless. So I just hopped on a bike and tried to flush things out.
Yeah.
And I was just like, no, after that, there was no muscular soreness. I was just like drained. I had to go nap. I just had to suck back a ton of juice. Like I bought orange juice and I drank like 2 liters of orange juice because like I needed sugar. And I was just drained. Like I couldn't mentally focus on anything the rest of the day.
Oh God.
I
bet, man.
I just went on the couch, watched like whatever. And then the next day, the only thing that was sore on me was my upper back.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Because you kind of have to round a bit to like get your arms around this whole thing, right?
Yeah. Upper back and my right bicep, because the way I held it, like my left hand was pulling my right arm in. And I think my right bicep maybe worked a little harder, but
yeah, I mean, that must have been super tough. I think about the times I've ever had to do any sandbag holds, like obviously nothing close to 200. For me, the biggest thing is the breathing. I remember, I think you had me do some stuff like that when we were training together. You'd have me hold something and hug something and run around, and I'm just like, I can't breathe. I mean, I was doing conditioning at the time, so I was like breathing really, really heavy. But how was that part? Like, so you're bracing this thing up against you, you're bracing your core, how were you breathing? Like, was it more shoulders or like?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's probably my little secret. I was pulling, I was holding the bag up and like purposely trying to have it rest on my chest more so I
Mm,
could belly breathe.
nice.
So I was like, and that allowed me to take bigger, deeper breaths. And like it made me feel extremely comfortable. Like if you watch the full video, I was rapping in the middle of it. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was like full on like rapping to Eminem lyrics because like I was able to like expand my stomach.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Had I not been able to expand my stomach, I think that it would have been different. I just have like my arms are just long enough where I was able to get the bag just high enough on my chest where it can sit on my
Mm-hmm.
chest and I could just belly breathe. So that's where the breathing came from.
That's awesome. That's good. I gotta start doing that whenever I get back to the sandbag stuff.
Yeah.
Dude, I really miss training with you, man. I gotta say, I miss those days when I would just go to Aux, you'd like whoop me and push me harder than I'd ever been pushed. And it's a nice feeling because I just remember looking at my Apple Watch and I'm like, what? Like, how's my heart rate that high? And like, I feel like I'm gonna puke today, like, which is something at that point I had never felt since the beginning of CrossFit. Whenever I do like an idiot, do like soccer mentality. I don't know if you had the same thing. I went in there with like a soccer mentality. Like I would sprint and then kind of go slow, and then sprint and go slow, and then I realized that that doesn't work in CrossFit, and I'd always get super nauseous and super pukey. But yeah, when I trained with you, man, it was great, man. You showed me this side of myself that I was like, oh man, like I thought I was like training hard. Like no, man, this is hard.
Yeah. That was fun times. Like, especially like given your goals and like how we can shift it, but like no matter what the goals are, you can make it challenging so that you're actually getting like a stimulus out of it, adaptation and all
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah, I still use some of the stuff you teach me, man. Like I'm doing intervals on the rower. I'm doing I got two wall balls, so I'm doing what I'll do is I don't have a 30-pound one, so what I'll do is I'll do like either thrusters or squats with like a barbell, and then I'll do the wall ball. You think you had me do 10 heavy wall balls, 20 medium, and then no, yeah, 10 heavy, 20 medium, and then the 30 very light, and then the air squats. Oof, dude, that's one of my favorite workouts. I gotta say, like, it's yeah, it's good, man. Good shit.
Building that aerobic, it's aerobic capacity work, right? So that could be a whole podcast on its own, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I always find my quads are the thing that they always go first. My quads are the things that just my quads and my abs. Those two things always go first. Um, but yeah, man. Hopefully we get to do that soon. Maybe I'll come up to Barrie when things are a lot more chill, and we can get back into the gym. Yeah, how are you? How can people reach you? How can people train? You're doing online classes, I'm assuming, with Ox and with Barrie, right?
Yeah, I'm doing both online. I think Barrie, we just got the news today, is going back into the red. And so we're going to be opening that place up on Monday. Ox is in Toronto, so that's probably going to stay online for a while.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there's that, but people could reach me really on my personal Instagram. So Nani Ourique, yeah, at Nani Ourique, or they can follow
Mm-hmm.
either gym, which is at Auxillary Fit, or CrossFit Barrie.
Nice. What is a red zone for like Barrie? What are the like class sizes, or what are the restrictions up there right now?
You're allowed 10 people in the building. So the class is about 9 people plus coaches, or plus
Nice.
the coach. Yeah. So
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Awesome. Well, Hernani, like that.
yeah, Nani. Yeah, it's pretty
Hernani?
good. Yeah, Nani.
Thanks for being on the show, man. I had a fun time chatting with you. Looking forward to seeing you in person again and training with you again. Um, yeah, no, I'm really excited to see where you and Sam take CrossFit Barrie, and who knows, man, maybe one day in the future I'll be living up north closer to you guys.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be sweet.
All right, buddy. Thanks for
We'll
being
go
on the
on the
show, man.
floaty.
Yeah, we'll be on the floating. Thanks for being on the show, man.
Thank you.